Maxding, milk, and ancient Mesopotamia. While you may think there's no relation among them, think again. Maxding shows common rabies symptoms, such as a fear of water, hyperactivity, excitable behavior, hallucinations, and a lack of coordination. Louis Pasteur, who invented pasteurization, a process used to sterilize milk, also invented the rabies vaccine. Two cuneiform tablets, thought to have been made 4,000 years ago, around the time the Mesopotamian civilization started, recount the laws of Ashuna and show a link between rabid dog bites and human death. The scientific name for rabies is rabies lyssavirus. The name rabies comes from the family Rhabdoviridae. The origin of the word rabies is either from the Sanskrit rapasu, violence, or the Latin rabire, to rage. The ancient Greeks called rabies lyssa, which means violence. Today, the virus causing rabies is classified in the genus Lyssavirus. Rabies virus is a rod or bullet-shaped, single-stranded enveloped RNA virus. The virus genome encodes 5 proteins: nucleoprotein N, phosphoprotein P, matrix protein M, glycoprotein G, and polymerase L. The bullet-shaped lyssavirus particle is 100 to 300 nanometers in length and 75 nanometers in diameter. It is composed of 2 structural and functional units: a helical ribonucleoprotein core (RNP) and a surrounding envelope. In the RNP, genomic RNA is tightly encased by the nucleoprotein. Two other viral proteins, the phosphoprotein P and the large protein L polymerase, are associated with the RNP. The glycoprotein forms approximately 400 trimeric spikes, which are tightly arranged on the surface of the virus. The M protein is associated with both the envelope and the RNP, so it may be the central protein of rhabdovirus assembly. Rabies is one of the oldest known diseases in history, with cases dating back to 4,000 years ago. For most of human history, a bite from a rabid animal was uniformly fatal. In the past, people were so scared of rabies that after being bitten by a potentially rabid animal, many would commit suicide. Pasteur's rabies vaccine from 1885 has led to such intense prophylaxis in developed countries that in the United States, for example, there have been only about 2 rabies deaths per year for the past 2 decades. Less developed countries are not so lucky. Records of rabies date back to ancient times, with the first written account found in the Babylonian Esmuna Code from 2300 BC. Celsus, a Roman scholar, correctly identified saliva as the means of transmission, but proposed ineffective cures, such as submerging victims in water. Other historical remedies included burning wounds and using hair from rabid dogs, based on erroneous principles of homeopathy. The incubation period for rabies is 2 to 3 months, but may vary from 1 week to 1 year. Once a person begins showing signs and symptoms of rabies, the disease nearly always causes death. First symptoms are very similar to the flu and may last for days. There are 2 types. Furious rabies have symptoms of hyperactivity, excitable behavior, hallucinations, lack of coordination, hydrophobia, and aerophobia or fear of drafts. Death occurs after a few days of showing these symptoms. Paralytic rabies, on the other hand, account for 20% of rabies cases. This form of rabies is often misdiagnosed, which contributes to the underreporting of it. Paralytic rabies aren't as dramatic as furious rabies, and people usually live longer after showing these symptoms, although death is inevitable. Muscles gradually become paralyzed, starting from the wound site. A coma develops and death occurs. Rabies is present on all continents except Antarctica, with over 95% of human deaths occurring in Asia and Africa. Rabies primarily affects poor, marginalized, and vulnerable populations. Rabies kills about 59,000 people worldwide. Since the rabies vaccine has been around for more than 100 years, rabies is most commonly found in places with limited access to preventative treatment and health resources. Children are often at greatest risk from rabies. They are more likely to be bitten by dogs, and are also more likely to be severely exposed through multiple bites in high-risk sites on the body. People are usually infected following a deep bite or scratch from an animal with rabies, which is in 99% of cases a dog. Transmission can also occur if saliva of infected animals comes into direct contact with mucosa from the eyes or mouth, or fresh skin wounds. Although rabies are usually transmitted through dogs in North America and Europe, bats are the primary source of human rabies deaths, since dog-related transmission has been interrupted. From the point of entry, usually a bite, the rabies virus travels along the nerves to the spinal cord and then to the brain, where it multiplies. From there, it travels along other nerves to the salivary glands and into the saliva. Once the rabies virus reaches the spinal cord and brain, rabies is almost always fatal. Although rabies only attacks the nervous system, other symptoms can result due to the nervous system failing. Although a bite from a dog usually causes rabies in humans, bats are the true primary reservoir Typical host reservoirs of rabies are the domestic dog, red fox, Arctic fox, striped skunk, and coyote. Post-exposure prophylaxis, or PEP, is the emergency response to a rabies exposure. This prevents the virus from entering the central nervous system. There are three categories of contact. In Category 1, the person has touched or fed a rabid animal, with the only contact being the animal licking intact skin. It's recommended to wash the skin. No PEP is recommended. In Category 2, the person has been exposed to the rabid animal, but only has minor scratches without bleeding. The PEP for Category 2 includes washing the wound and vaccinating the person. In Category 3, the person has transdermal bites or scratches, and the recommended PEP is wound washing, immediate vaccination, and administration of rabies antibodies. There are some preventative measures that can mitigate the rabies damage. Awareness of rabies allows people to save themselves by seeking the care that they need. People need to understand how to prevent rabies in animals, when to suspect rabies, and what to do in case of a bite by a rabid animal. Mass dog vaccination also prevents rabies, as the transmission of rabies is halted at its source. World Rabies Day is celebrated every September 28th to raise awareness of rabies. Since you know so much about rabies, you too can join the global fight against rabies by educating others in your community about this deadly virus.